Good day, everyone. This is Mr. Michael G. Hormachuelos, and I will be reporting on the stages of value formation. The objectives for this report are the following: identify the stages of value formation, explain the concepts of value clarification, and discuss the three schools of thought to value formation. Human beings have always been in a constant quest and search for true knowledge. Similarly, a human being continuously seeks the values which he or she considers important. These values, in turn, form the individual's attitude, influence the thinking pattern, and form their basic guiding principles. How values influence our thinking and behavior is well expressed by Barrett in a study in 1962. He claimed that humans regard anything as beautiful, any attitude more worthy of respect than another, and to exert effort to achieve an end. To think of anything as being more useful or to prefer something over another is done because of the underlying value system is in synchronization with their own. Values can be found in everything. This idea has been expounded upon by various scholars in terms such as value is present in everything, be it people, ideas, things, or events, according to Lasky and Marshall in their work in 1935. Humans should always be viewed within confounds of their values, without which they would be considered mere brutes, beasts, or lower animals. It is believed that no society could ever be formed and maintained without value standard. According to Colbert in 1960, values are the foundation of all human organizations and undertakings. This could be the major reason why all men are concerned, and often deeply concerned, with values. For the authentic human existence, human beings have to internalize a value system because values are real and indispensable for human experience. A complete and deep understanding of values will help to fully understand what experience is all about. This sort of knowledge furnished people with better understanding of human person and life in its fullness. We will now go to the stages of value formation. There are three stages of value formation. The first one is called the preconditional stage or childhood. This is the phase wherein children comply with the values of those who assert power on them, may it be their parents, teachers, and religious figures. The second stage of value formation is what we know as conventional stage, or the youth stage. It is in this conventional stage or youth that adolescents identify with their peers, their idols, and teachers due to interpersonal communication. And the third stage of value formation is what we call as post-conventional stage, adulthood. It is in this stage where people internalize the values they have imbibed in the first two stages without fear. Let us now go more deeper and understand these stages of value formation by looking at value development. Developing values in an individual is a process that can be viewed in three stages. And these are cognitive, affective, and behavioral. People perceive what is desirable or right, seek and cherish what they perceive as desirable or right, and then behave in accordance with these perceptions. This process is influenced by the person's environment, the family, school, social groups, institutions, the neighborhood, the nation, and the global community. As people grow in self awareness, they become aware of their social responsibility to the community around them. As we move along, let us now learn the three schools of thought that underlie values development. The first one is the learning theorists or the behaviorists view that moral behavior is the result of three sorts of mechanisms: reinforcement and rewards, punishment or threat of it, and modeling or imitation. This is related to Skinner's pattern of behavior modification through reinforcement. The research works of Sears, Bandura, and Eysenck provide examples of this theory. The second school of thought belongs to the cognitive developmentalists, who view values development as an active, dynamic, and constructive process where the individual is able to act according to moral principles because he understands and agrees with them. The research works of Piaget, Kohlberg, Toriel, and Jessel provide examples of this view. The third school of thought belongs to the psychoanalysts, who view values development as a conforming to cultural standards through internalization of emotional experiences and the simultaneous formulation of conscience. Freud and Erickson's works provide examples of this thought. Let us now go to value clarification theory as we try to understand the stages of value formation. A brief review of history reveals that in the past, it was the adults and educators who guided and motivated the younger generations to live a worthy life. In order to do this, various types of methods, means, and ways had been used. However, these did not cater for the individuality of the younger generation. Emphasis was given to authority. In other words, the adults imposed their value systems on the youngsters. This sort of system does not create the skills of decision making and independence in youth. It has been proven that people brought up and formed by moralizing educators, authoritative parents, and dogmatic preachers are not prepared to make their own responsible choices and value decisions. In the study conducted by Andres in 1980, Friedenberg Goodman criticized traditional approaches to values. Illich says that learning is the human activity which least needs manipulation by others, according to Andres in 1980. In the light of all this, we can say that value clarification is based on the approach formulated by Dr. Louis Rath, who developed his thought upon John Dewey's thinking. It says that value clarification is an educational philosophy based on the concept of humanity that says human beings hold the possibility of being thoughtful and wise, and that the most appropriate values will come when people use their intelligence freely and reflectively to define their relationships with each other and with an ever-changing world. It is believed that if values do exist, they are personal things. but they cannot be personal until and unless they are chosen freely and penetrate the life of the person who considers them to be a part and parcel for him or her. Value clarification, then, is a sort of manner to become human, and therefore there's nothing to do with the content of values people hold. Rather, it is concerned with the process of valuing. Value clarification is also of reflecting, examining, and recollection about our lives in order to discover within ourselves clearly what we like and dislike, what we want to do and what we don't want to do. The basis of all this is upon the assumption that the process of development of values is a personal matter and is a lifelong process. Values are time bound. As the time changes, the world changes. And as humans change, values are changed. Due to this, every human person tries to change his world accordingly. In this process, he must learn how to value, and this is the purpose and aim of value clarification theory. As Dr. Simon affirms it, seeking and clarifying our values is a lifelong challenge, but it rewards one with a healthy mental life and a satisfying personal growth. Someone who seeks to clarify his own values becomes a more purposeful, more productive human being, with a greater zest for life, and hopefully with more consideration for his fellow human beings. He will often be a person with beautiful human relations, someone who can be counted on because he knows where he stands. As he progresses in his search, he will develop into a more aware and discerning person. He will convey the feeling that life is really precious, worth living to the fullest, and worth sharing with others. Sharing in the best sense of the word, learning how to make honest and considered choices, unaffected by outside pressures and prejudices. That is the decision-making part of values clarification. When we reach this state, we begin closing the gap between what we say and what we do, between the person we are and the person we would like to become. We now go to the formation and inculcation of values. Our values are not genetically transferred and transmitted like animals, but values are culturally shared and communicated with others. As the Chinese philosopher Sun Tzu, value comes from culture, and culture is the achievement of man. The transmission and adaptation of values begins at home and at school. Besides these two elements, there is a third element which also plays an important role, and that is mass media. Sigmund Freud made a great contribution to our understanding of value formation. According to him, parents and family are very important. They play a great role in forming and transmitting values. He further says that a child goes through certain stages, starting from Oedipal stage and reaching the superego stage. In the process of forming the superego, the important element is identification. The child identifies himself with his parents, and they become living guide for the child. Besides this, the child starts to identify himself with his teacher in the school, his playmates, and the personality whom he liked. Brian P. Hall described that a child goes through four levels of consciousness And as the person grows and becomes mature, he arranges his values. To further understand value formations, let us now look at the four levels of consciousness that will be described with the following diagrams. Here we see diagram number 1 and diagram number 2. In the first level of consciousness, the young child meets the world as a mystery. All is new and surprising. This because he lacks the skills to cope with this entirely found new world. The world is experienced by him as awesome and wonderful. The stage is known as the egocentric, and the child gives values to security, survival, physical satisfaction, and a sense of wonder. In the second level, the child grows and he finds the world as a problem. And to deal with this world, he needs certain basic skills. For him, the world is full of difficulties, and his life is controlled by the outside forces, like his parents, teachers, politicians, religious leaders, etc. To solve all these life's problems, and acknowledgement and approval from outside forces, he needs some sort of skills. At this stage, the work becomes important because he feels that he is useful and he has learned something which gives him right to belong. It is a sense of self-worth. At the third level, the individual experiences freedom and independence. He is not living under the authority of outside forces, but he has become a person that is self-directed. Authority becomes personal to him, and he could solve life's problem in a more creative way. In the fourth level of consciousness, the person finds himself in an imaginative contemplation and wants to create a new world, not alone, but with others. The community becomes stronger, and they feel that in harmony and in congruence, they can change the universe into a new reality. Looking at the levels and experiences and teachings of the persons involved in value communication, we can say that we cannot teach values like a subject, but we can form and transmit them. After the family comes the school. Therefore, school teachers must be aware of this aspect, that they have to help and guide the students to develop values. From Louis E. Ratt's book called Values and Teaching, here are 7 things on how to help children form values. Number 1, encourage children to make more choices and to make them freely. Number 2, help them discover alternatives when faced with choices. Number 3, help children weigh alternatives thoughtfully, reflecting on the consequences of each. Number 4, encourage children to consider what is that they prize and cherish. Number 5, give them opportunities to affirm their choices. And number 6, encourage them to act, behave, and live in accordance with their choices. And number 7, help them to be aware of repeated behaviors or patterns in their lives. In conclusion, we say that values are indispensable for human beings as they shape and guide human life. Each person goes through a process of developing, forming, and clarifying values. As it is said, that values are what we are. Truth could be a value when we are open with others and are honest. In the same way, love is a value when we are caring, tolerant, and compassionate to others. Values are time bound and it changes with the course of time. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have learned something out of this presentation. Thank you so much.